And we're on. Hey guys, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Hi.
Hi.
Hey there.
So, for those who are watching at home or while driving, this is April and Jason of BariNation. They've been great friends for a couple of years. But as we all know, the community, the bariatric community, is always growing. Our supporter base is always growing over at Dive Bar Nutrition. So, if you would, give us a minute each about yourself and your role at BariNation, and we'll take it from there. April?
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Phil, for having us on. And yes, we've been Dive Bar fans, family, friends for quite some time now.
Yeah.
I had vertical sleeve gastrectomy, bariatric surgery in July of 2019. And after my procedure, COVID shut the world down. And so went the support that was offered through my surgical center. My background is in online education, and I realized I had the ability to bring people together in digital environments for some meaningful things. And I started hosting virtual bariatric meetups. That's where I met Jason. We got to connect with all kinds of experts, and we launched a podcast, a patient-voiced podcast. It turned into BariNation. We are a bariatric educational organization that strives to connect patients with the resources, tools, and education that they need to find success and happiness before and after bariatric surgery.
And I'm Jason Smith. I am 1/3 of the BariNation triad that has started the podcast and created the community. I had VSG March 11th of 2020, which is also the vertical sleeve, and then I was also looking for any information I could find because I had just had surgery. I was the last surgery that my surgical center had before COVID, shut everything down. So I didn't know. I was kind of out there on my own, didn't really know anything. So was grasping for any information I could find. And that's when I ran across April, and we just kind of struck up this amazing friendship that's been going now for 4 years, which led us to Professor Phil, who is amazing, and Dive Bar and the products, which are also amazing. And it's been very, very pivotal in our journey so far. And I also went and had a revision in December of 2023. So I'm a little over 5 months out from that, for my revision to the SADI. And the bariatric community as a whole has helped me as much as I've ever been able to help them with the podcast, the community, or anything else. Like, I'm just always glad to have a support system to lean on, and this community's been amazing. And Professor Phil is an integral part of that community, so we can't thank him enough for all he's done for us.
Well, thanks, guys. And the feeling's mutual. Like I said, it's kind of just fell backward into the bariatric community and meeting everyone and finding them and them finding us at Dive Bar. So, and I believe I shared this several months ago on you guys' podcast and maybe a few years earlier, but certainly a few years ago, a few months ago, because I just started to feel comfortable to discuss it, and that is that while I'm not a bariatric patient, I have a few relatives and a few friends who did not see the result or the outcome that they had hoped for, and they struggled. All of those surgeries are sort of be silly to say the pre-internet era, but prior to social media being this tool available to connect and form communities and make friends and have peers within any particular community or interest. These are surgeries that are, for the most part, the early, mid 2000s, maybe one in the later 2000s, but we would be talking, maybe MySpace, Friendster, whatever. So having seen that, I feel like oh gosh, we're all of a generation that can remember Cops. Cops? No, America's Most Wanted was the gentleman whose child was abducted, and he dedicated his life to hosting the show. And so I just feel like it's an honor and a privilege to be adjacent and peripheral to the community. So enough of that, but I just wanted the folks to know, because I get asked sometimes at conferences and expos and stuff, and And then, like I said, I feel like before someone casts a stone or points a finger, my background is a different one, but it means a lot to me. So enough of me, enough of that. You might have said this a moment ago, but it's a two-parter. So just quick, if you could just give us a year of your surgery, April. I pardon me if you mentioned it a moment ago, but I know we had Jason 2020.
Yep.
And then when did you have your surgery?
Mine was
So I have
July.
a sense.
Yeah, July of 2019.
July of 2019. Okay. So I'm gonna weave in and out of the bullet points here, the notes. But so did you guys? There was a community prior. Like I said, I kind of call you guys online community 2.0 because I bumped into, metaphorically speaking, in through cyberspace what I believe was community 1.0, the original group of friends and peers that I'm told kind of met over the course of 2015. The first couple is kind of like the colonists in the 13 colonies. The first few got together, and then a couple more, and this person told that person. And by summer of 16, there was a community. Do you find, we've kind of talked about this, but for people at home, that community sort of imploded. There may have been some remnants and some personalities who were hanging around. Was the group that you know and associate with and enjoy talking to, did it spawn out of that at all? Now, obviously, it came next and I think bigger and greater and friendlier, but did you know anyone? Did you look, was there anybody online, or was this kind of a fresh start? It's kind of like all the cavemen died and then you're just kind of coming over in the Dutch boat, or, this is probably not an appropriate reference in the modern day and age, but
I think what was interesting for me is I didn't know there was an online bariatric community before I had weight loss surgery. I knew two people who had had it, prior to me. They were friends of my parents, and I only had one other person that really kind of like walked me through the journey. I didn't know there was an online community. I don't even think, maybe I had an Instagram before surgery. I really can't remember. Now that we've been in the bariatric community for 4 years, I can certainly understand why these communities, these bigger groups, have cycled in and out. It's a lot of work to support other people. As an educator, as a teacher, I know the toll that can just take. It's work. I also know how exhausting and daunting the work of weight loss surgery is. There have been plenty of times that myself, Jason, Natalie, we just don't want to bariatric anymore. We don't want to do the work. We're tired. We're feeling beat up. We're kind of, feeling bad about ourselves, or right. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens. So I absolutely understand why a robust community could kind of fade to the background a little bit. It's a lot of work on a lot of different levels. So when I found what I think today is kind of like my group of bariatric community, it was certainly new and fresh for me. And I know that there are plenty of pockets of community out there as well, right? The people that we associate with, it's very much a nucleus. And then there's other ones that are out there as well. And I think what's important when it comes to community and the community that you choose to opt into, people, again, struggle treating this disease, living with this disease, and people are going to go in and out. People are going to ghost. People are going to have a really difficult time. And, choosing into a community that is safe and welcoming and inclusive is important. Choosing into a community that is more of a network sometimes and not so much social media based can be huge, because the comparison game is real. That game is strong. I find myself some days scrolling Instagram or TikTok, and all of a sudden I'm comparing myself and my journey. So for me, it's been really important to connect with a community that is a true network and not so social media based, and really take the time to get to know people as people and patients. It's made a big difference.
Yeah, I know. For myself, much like April, I had an Instagram, but it had like 4 pictures of my kids on it from when they were little, and they're not little anymore. And I legitimately had to go dust that off to be able to join and do the things that I wanted to do with my with my Instagram to find and help support the community and get the support that I needed. I didn't really know. Like, I just started looking at hashtags that dealt with bariatrics of all kinds, and that's how I came across April and a couple of the people that I had found. It took me about 2 months to find somebody before I had surgery that looked like I did, because our community is vast, but there weren't a lot of men that were comfortable enough to share in their story before I had surgery. So it took me about 2 months of scrolling before I found somebody that looked like I did. Because, while it is amazing that so many women have such success with this surgery, I don't look like Linda from accounting, who's, 5'3" and had a little extra weight on her. I'm 6'4" and weighed, 480 pounds, 470 pounds at my highest. So I had to find somebody that was going to have my body type, that was a man, that was going to go, had gone through kind of the similar things I had, for me to understand or realize that it was even going to work for me. And when I did finally find somebody, I found a man that was about an inch taller than I am and weighed about 100 pounds more than I did at my heaviest. And that's when I locked in and really realized, like, this could be a thing for me. And so with that, I kind of took that and parlayed it into helping build more of a community that was kind of representative of me, as well as, helping some of the others that had already been there as much as I could, because it was just something that was so, like, it gave me a second lease on life. So I wanted to help as many people with that as I could. So if my journey could help one person, I was all in on that. And I jumped in with both feet and never looked back. So.
Cool. Very, very, I mean, again, I mentioned us being of similar ages, and who would have thought, right, that when we were 5 or 10, you can make best friends through, I mean, I remember, this is the computer. You press 10 and it makes 10 units to the left. It draws a green line, and then you press up and you can make a square. And now you got super, computers. We literally, you go in your pocket and you take out the Jetsons and you FaceTime or chat, and we're doing it now. So I just want to get, I'm going to be a little more, we'll go broad stroke, and in a minute we'll talk to, about the culture and BariNation, but I just want to get a little nostalgic. And Jason, you mentioned finding people. Again, when Dive Bar was found, I saw people, we were tagged, so I'd see somebody review their bars, or look, I got a Happy Mail, and hashtag WLS. And I didn't think anything of it the first 1 or 5 or 10 times, and then you start seeing, well, I see this hashtag. So whatever the heck you could do then, I searched it, and I started to see WLS patients. How did you, was it in 2020 or 19, was it a hashtag search and find? Or did the algorithms, the almighty algorithm, did it just start giving you, did you search for 3, 4, 5 people or things, hashtags, I guess, and then it just started kind of giving it to you, and you liked one thing and you comment on another, and they go, let's give Jason some more of that. And so that was even the case 5 years ago or 4.
Yeah, definitely. Once I started searching WLS and bariatric men, I really kind of, once I learned that I could start searching in those ways, it really narrowed down the field. And it did take a while, because, like I said, I was Facebook ride or die. Like, I had a following on Facebook, and like I would go live on Facebook all the time, and I had all this stuff. So I was very comfortable with that. So when they were like, "No, you got to get on Instagram," I was like, "Yeah, I don't know anything about that." And so I was really all thumbs when it came to it. But once I started kind of figuring that out, and I built the algorithm kind of built itself out for me to find, a lot of other people in the bariatric community. And then I stumbled across April 2 weeks post-op that was having a virtual bariatric meetup. And I was looking for, like I said, I was looking for any information I could. So when I jumped into that and I was sold from that point, because I was able to take in so much information of which I had none, because like I said, the world had shut down. So I was sitting at home, 2 weeks post-op, just trying to heal and not knowing what to do next. I had a little sheet of paper that had a couple of instructions on it, but it's kind of like finding your ass in the dark with both hands. You're kind of like, you need a map to get there. And my map was very small, very limited.
Right. And April, I don't know if you have something to add, but I have I have an add-on or a extendo question, and then I'm going to give it to you. Jason mentions the little sheet of paper, right? So I see on all platforms of the three big ones that are out there today, bariatric patients. I've shared that there's a bariatric group, private group on Facebook that I openly entered and was permitted into, and I said, I have a business and I'm in nutrition and I'm a out of work, not practicing trainer, and I was embraced and I don't abuse it. But every day, 10 times a day, I see a post that, it's kind of saddening. It's, can I have this food? How do you enjoy that item? I did this and now my stomach is rupturing and burning and I'm in pain, and oh my God, anyone go through this? And that's still happening. So where's the disconnect? Everyone's being operated on, and then they're given a little piece of paper. I mean, it seems that there's a lot of need for a social network, quite literally, right? So there you go. No pressure. But what the hell is going on out there?
We have some theories. A bariatric surgeon's job is to operate on you. Their job is to perform that procedure perfectly, flawlessly, keep you alive, and then send you on your way. They do not have the capacity to, I think, really pass along every little bit of information a patient is going to need along their journey. It's just not possible. Many of them, most of them, try really hard to prepare you as best you can before surgery. And that's wonderful that even that exists. And it's kind of one of those things where you don't know what you don't know until you know it. Mm-hmm. And when I woke up from my procedure, I was in so much pain. I was disorientated. I was questioning what I had done. And then a week after surgery, I found myself in the darkest place I had ever been in my entire life. And when I called my surgeon and I explained to them what I was feeling, physically and emotionally, they didn't really have any answers because they weren't patients. So it's not a knock on them. It's just a knock. It's it's just how the system is built, which is where
Right.
BariNation came in and comes in, where we can kind of be that handoff between the wonderful care that you're hopefully getting with your surgical center and your care team. We can kind of be that supplement. We can say, we're patients. We understand what this is like. We've probably experienced this too. And here is a kind and caring and inclusive community where you can practice being a bariatric patient. Nobody told me that I was going to experience grief a week after surgery. Nobody told me that it was going to, take 3 months to recover. Nobody was able to explain to me the loss of the longest, most abusive relationship I'd ever had in my life, and that was with food, right? Like that stuff just can't be put in a binder. It can't really be passed along that way. So the joy and the benefit of communities like BariNation is that you not only get to connect with other patients who have been through or are going through the exact same stage that you are, but you can connect with experts in bariatric care and medicine and ask your question to somebody who is licensed and credentialed and you know, and can give you accurate advice. And that was kind of what we had seen, you know, before we started BariNation. There's a ton of information out there, and you just don't know what's true, what's not. You don't know who to trust or why to trust, and you can go down a rabbit hole of researching. And we just thought, you know, it would be really nice to have this information all in one place. And when we looked around, we didn't find a community that Jason and I could join, right? There were some communities just for men, there were communities that were just for women, but there wasn't a community where he and I could be in it together. And it made the world of difference for us because we didn't have to feel like we were alone. We knew that we could connect with experts that we trusted. And as our needs changed, right? So as we both moved out from surgery, there were new things that we needed to learn. There were new aha moments. There were new experiences, right? We moved through the stages. We went from, you know, newly post-op to bariatric beginner to the honeymoon to smack dab in the middle of the commitment and not wanting to bariatric anymore, right? Understanding what life and maintenance was going to be like. We needed different things along the journey. And, you know, BariNation provides that for us.
All right. Well, good. I mean, thank God that you guys got that. I mean, it's really, like I said, it's remarkable that globally, but I was going to say across the nation, that those voids existed, and thank God that you guys found each other. And that's kind of what I meant by sad. It's sad that somebody would endure what I would call an invasive surgery, to say the least, and have these questions. But a portion of those posts, we'll call it, would conclude, you know, with a question, or is this right? Why I feel terrible. And sometimes it would conclude with, I hate my life and this surgery, and I wish I didn't do this. And it's the next day, or it's in that first week. And I'm in no position to tell somebody what they should or should not have done, but that's a generally unfortunate and sad thing to read, that somebody feels that way. And it's from lack of guidance and lack of network, you know.
Well, lack of support is huge in the post-op situation. We find so many people that family members, friends, they have no one in their close circle that agrees with what they've done, and they're just left out there on an island. And that's where a lot of you find the buyer's remorse comes from, is people that just don't have the support, and that's why April and I started BariNation.
So here's so this is one that you can answer as much or as little as you want. I know you guys personal, you know, I know you're a mere tidbit into your personal lives, but what was the experience, and again, to the extent you want to share or not, but your spouses or significant others, you know, and I think I know a little bit, with Jason, but was there support or not? Was your significant other also a patient, and or was there a challenging relationship with food? What is the background of that person, and then how these two worlds collide pre-surgery and then remain interactive, or, you know, in engaged, literally, you know, how does it work thereafter?
Yeah.
The support system. So
I think Jason and I are very fortunate. Both of our spouses have been 100% in our corner, ride or die, whatever we need. My future husband at the time almost lost his life because when we first started dating, he asked me if I had ever considered bariatric surgery, and I damn near put him in his grave, because that was something that I thought only people who were 600 pounds did. I was convinced that I could, you know, diet and exercise my way out of obesity, and he helped me on that roller coaster for 10 years. Really for the entire time we were dating, and then for a big chunk of our marriage. So when I really became educated and made the decision to have bariatric surgery, he was absolutely my number one supporter, number one fan. Whatever I needed, he was there for. Any modifications or anything that I needed, like, done in our house, or emotional support, he was there. And he was even able to kindly call me out when he saw that I was exhibiting behaviors that weren't healthy. He was able to say, like, oh, well, that's weird. You don't like beer, as I was sitting on the couch, drinking a can of beer. And he's like, I'm not like, you do you, boo, but you just don't like beer, So it's like, to have somebody there that, that is able to kind of give you that kind of accountability was priceless. And he remains the steadfast supporter in my life as a patient, and, and as somebody growing BariNation.
Jason, just before you, I want you, of course, to answer. I'm fascinated with the beer thing because, again, the tidbits that I hear and I have insight to, it sounds like there's people who, much like the stories I hear of childbirth, they always enjoyed this food and then they hate it after this situation or physically traumatic situation. Was the beer thing just a fluke that you were like, I'm chillaxing with a beer? Or did you suddenly, you did like beer? Or was that a little displacement sort of? Is that a whole nother psychotherapist? We have to let Jason talk in 30 seconds, but
I'll just say I was having a really difficult time adjusting to bariatric life. I was feeling lost and alone. I was feeling disconnected. I was not understanding what life was all about. And I did not have the coping skills at the time to understand what I was experiencing. And I went to the grocery store one day and I saw a local brewery had a new beer, like Pog beer. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to get. And brought it home and sat down on the couch and cracked a beer and was sitting there, drinking it. And Grady got home from work and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, it's a new Silver City, whatever, Pog beer. He's like, oh, well, that's weird. And I was like, what's weird about it, bro? Like starting to get all like, oh. And he was like, you don't like beer. And I was like, oh, yeah. Which I don't. I like German beer, but I don't like beer. So it was in that moment he was able to help me see I was engaging in some behaviors that was not aligned to the bariatric life that I wanted to lead, or just to who I was as a person.
Okay. All right. And Jason, if you would share to your comfort, your experience and your journey with your spouse, your wife.
My wife has always been one to let me know when I was doing a little too much. So we've tried every diet together. We've had, I didn't really struggle with my weight until I had health issues when I was like 25 or 26, I think it was, 27, I guess I was, when I really started having serious issues that I gained over 100 pounds, about 130 pounds in about 8 months.
Wow.
And so with those came kind of behaviors that I started kind of piling on, and my wife's kind of like, hey man, like we need to do something about this. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So we would diet, we would do the things and kind of go through the role. And it was for me just as much as it was her. Like we did it together. We always wanted to have that kind of united front. And then the funny thing is when it came to surgery, that was for other people, not for me. Like what April said, like I watched my 600-pound life to make myself feel better because I'm like, well, at least I'm not like those people. When in reality, I was those people. Like I was that. I didn't realize I had an addiction to food until after I had surgery. And then I realized I couldn't have it anymore. And it was a problem for me. And I actually had surgery because I was trying to talk my wife out of it, and I talked myself into it because my wife was going to have it, and she was like, well, my insurance at work doesn't cover it, so I'm just going to go to Mexico and get this done. Well, at the time, I didn't know anything about it, about any of it. And I knew that medical tourism was a thing. But when you tell me I'm going to go to Mexico and get half my stomach cut out, I'm like, and probably a kidney or something too, and they're going to sell it on the black market. You're going to wake up in a bathtub full of ice. Like, we're not going there, because what happens if you have problems and you can't go back, and like there's a whole thing. And in doing the research for it, I realized that not only did my insurance at work cover it, but I had gone to a cardiologist appointment, and this doctor had never seen me before, didn't read my chart, didn't do anything. And I'm 470 pounds at the time when he comes in the office, and he takes one look at me and he's like, "Have you ever thought about bariatric surgery?" And I'm like, bro, you don't know me. Like, you didn't look at my chart. You don't know me. Like, I'm not sitting there out of breath from just existing. Like, like my blood type's not chocolate milk at the time. And he's like, when he finally, like, when I go back to my primary care doctor, I'm like, "Can you believe this guy said this?" And she looked at me and she's like, "You qualify." And I'm like, "What do you mean I qualify?" And she started like going through my chart and looking at me, and she's like, "Listen," she's like, "you're 44 years old. You're actively dying right now. Like, you're not getting out of this. Like, this isn't going to work. Like, if you see 50, you'll be extremely lucky." Well, I had a brand new grandbaby at the time. I've got kids. Like, my son hadn't even graduated high school yet. So at that point, I'm like, I got to do something. And my wife's like, "Let's do this. Like, what do we have to do? Let's get up." Like, so she was extremely on board the whole time. I was lucky enough to have my entire family and friend group rally around me and get me across the finish line when I really, not only was I adamant I didn't need it, but then I didn't even know how to go about it. So I was really helped in a big way by my friends and family.
That's great. I mean, it's amazing to have that, when you hear stories. I know people that they don't, there is no significant other, and for some unfortunate reason, they're not talking to even their own parents. And so to have that love and support, totally, that's great. Thank God. The thing that caught my attention in the last few minutes with each of you guys, there's a sentiment expressed by each of you at the first suggestion of bariatric surgery. That's not me. That's for the other people. And it can be, maybe it seems a little jarring or hurtful or insulting. And then, of course, you both at different times opted for the surgery. If because I know you're very academic and data-based, well, let me add this. I'll load the question. I've mentioned having 5 or 6 friends and family members who've had bariatric surgery. Those are people in my personal life. It precedes Dive Bar Nutrition. I believe in my professional life, we'll say from the collegiate work in 2016, 2015 to present day, I have had a few colleagues who I now, 1 or 2 have shared that they had bariatric surgery, but I also have the belief, because I'm more acquainted with the process, the recovery, and the lifestyle and the adjustments that ensue thereafter, and I believe that they had bariatric surgery. And it sounds dirty to say that. They haven't shared it with me, but I believe that they have. So, to alleviate shame, do we have any data on how many Americans, and it may vary among female and male, now at 46, I'm like, wow, I thought this was just for the 600-pound person. This is for 0.5% of America. I had thought that. Now it feels like 15% of America, from the one 600-pound man to 1 in 6 of men and women. So do we have data? Do we know, approximately, what percentage of adults are bariatric patients?
Yeah, I was actually working on our poster for the American Association of Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery conference. So we're going to the ASMBS conference. We're presenting an e-poster with Dr. Eric Smith on shame and weight bias when it comes to bariatric procedures. And from the research that I read, it looks like about 60% of American adults are obese, overweight. And in 2019, I believe there were 267,000 bariatric procedures performed in the United States alone.
Okay.
And I think the reason that so many people choose to keep their decision to have surgery private is there is a lot of shame, stigma, and bias that surrounds the disease of obesity. Only recently, right, because of the new class of anti-obesity medications, GLP-1s, is the conversation around obesity shifting to this disease model. But for decades now, somebody's excess weight is viewed as a personal or moral failing, right? So if somebody is overweight, they are making decisions that are leading to their size, and all of these decisions are now impacting the American health system, right? So there's a lot of shame and judgment on that. But as we now know, right, research has proven this time and time again, obesity is a disease, not a decision. None of us chose to have the disease of obesity. But unfortunately, unlike every other disease out there, somebody who suffers with obesity has to jump through hoops. They have, months of testing that they have to go through. There's so many barriers to treatment, right? So like if I walked into the emergency room and I was having heart issues, or all of a sudden I had high blood pressure, immediate treatment, right? Mm-hmm. I go into the same emergency room as an obese person, no treatment, right? My treatment is, well, diet, exercise, do this, do that, don't eat carbs, don't do this. I mean, it's like, rocket math. The most effective treatment for the disease of obesity remains bariatric surgery. The new class of anti-obesity medicines are absolutely, making huge strides in that treatment. But obesity is a chronic and lifelong condition. So there is no cure for it, right? Some people can undergo surgery and that surgical procedure helps them manage the disease for the rest of their life. But it's not like it's gone. Many of us experience weight reoccurrence. We experience the disease again in our life. We have a phenomenal podcast episode with Dr. Robert Kushner on this exact topic. And it's starting to shift now, right? This shift away from blaming people to really understanding the disease is happening, but there's still a lot of legacy shame and guilt and blame for yourself, because you really do believe that all of these years you've been making all of these decisions that have led to the disease. It's just simply not true, and it takes a lot of work to drop that shame and to drop the guilt. Jason and I have learned to do that by working through it in community with experts who can help us navigate those conversations and present, research and findings that help us understand that. But it's taken a lot of work, and society has still not made the switch.
So, real quick. So for the first half of what you're saying, right, I am, many people think I'm many things, but the one thing that I don't know that people don't know about, I started this damn business and I run it. So I kind of do this quick, like, street math, right? So I'm going, okay, you mentioned 220,000 surgeries?
67.
Ish.
261 or 67.
261,000 surgeries. I'm going to, again, it's just to use some blocky numbers for simplicity, I call it 250,000. Last year, that's a piece of last year data.
A couple years ago.
Okay. And so we could probably assume, as most things in life, right, we're in this inflation era, but every year in America, if not in the world, there's just more. There's more people born, there's more people this, there's more that, they make more cars, there's more iPhones in circulation and being thrown in the ocean or landfills or whatever. There's more. So now this is where it gets kind of fictitious, but let's say, it's 5% more each year. We're playing with a big number, 250,000, in excess of 250,000. And maybe the year before was 237,000 and the year before was 219 and maybe a little softer number the year before, 185. it's fair to say, is there a number like several million bariatric patient adults walking around in the United States?
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
I
okay.
mean, bariatric
Right.
surgery has been performed for the last 2 decades. At minimum, right? The first R&Y, the bypass was, yeah, I mean, decades ago. So there are
Right.
millions of Americans who have had some type of bariatric surgery, and probably millions more who have had revisional surgeries, like Jason, right? So you have your
Right.
initial procedure, something happens that requires that you are revised to a different type of surgery. So yeah, and obesity continues to rise. The rate of obesity is only increasing. What is changing now is more people have access to bariatric surgery through legislation, right, through insurance. And there are other modalities of treatment now that are effective, right? This newest class, the GLP-1 medications, very promising, right? I mean, there's plenty of chatter and talk about in the next decade, maybe they will be able to understand what turns obesity on in people and turn it off. That would be amazing.
So I'm going to ask you to, again, as I do, pardon the ignorance, but and it's not going to be as crude as I've set it up. But I come from, as you know, the health and phys ed instructor, the collegiate health professor. The things I heard the word disease a lot, right? So then, as per my academic career, I think back to alcoholism, drug addiction, and to a lesser extent, even gambling. Right? And then you can go on to self-mutilation and things like that. Put a pin in that. The other half of it, again, with the physiological background, which I'm light years short of being a doctor, but you wet your toes in it for the fitness certifications and everything else. What the heck was I saying? Oh, to me, obesity is the outcome. It is the state of, I don't know, what you guys may know better than I, but I would say, well, it's a state of this much overweight, or the cholesterol is at this rate, and the resting pulse is, and it's probably accumulative, right? Okay, and that's what we define as obesity. Might be a body fat percentage is high on the meter thing or whatever. So first off, and this can be a sure go ahead, am I on the right page?
Yeah, my understanding, Ray, is the definition of obesity has to do with excess body weight, excess body mass, right? And the disease impacts people because it changes their body's natural ability to process energy, which is why it's a disease. That fits the disease modality. I'm also not a doctor. I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn last night. I just enjoy learning about it, and if I'm misspeaking, then
Oh yeah, and I mean this is not. I'm not going to tag anyone at ASMBS. We're just friends chatting. But where I was going with it, so I want to preface that because again, we're in the modern time, and if you misspeak one word or two or three, and it comes across as insensitive, you guys would attest that I'm anything but insensitive. As mentioned in the past, there's a very weird thing in our household. My wife can buy a bag of chips and have 4 with her dinner, or after dinner go in the cabinet at 10 o'clock and have 2 chips, and that bag will last a freaking week or 2 or 3. Same thing, she could get the little chocolate covered nuts and she can have a little pinch, and the little half a pound of chocolate covered nuts will be there all month. I can't, I cannot. And I joke with her. I go, I guess you're lucky this is my addiction, but you can rest assured if there's a hooker, a drug dealer, or a bookie in front of a guy with a pizza, I'm going to kick the shit out of them and go, dude, you're standing in the way of the pizza. Just a warning. And and then if I have that bite, I cannot stop, right? So do we feel that, because I was just looking, you're saying the disease, and I'm in my academic health teacher mind, it's the disease of addiction. This time it's food addiction, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's food addiction. Come on, oh yeah, just stop bullshit." And it took us decades to say alcoholism is a disease, and even nicotine addiction. They don't use disease as much. Go to AA or NA. What are they doing? They're fucking drinking coffee. There's cookies in the back of the room, and they have a cigarette. So those are the three things. People are kicking heroin, and they're like guzzling the sugar, 5 sugars and cream in the coffee with the pizza or the donuts in the back of the room. Not to downplay fill in the blank anonymous, but it's just very creepy that people are dismissive of food addiction. And it's the thing that our narcotic addicts, that's what they fall back on, and it's the thing they can't kick. So I don't know if that was a long-winded question / commentary, but I guess do we feel, and again, this is amongst friends, I hear, I think most recently I heard Meg of Chicago talk about, and we all met in Las Vegas last summer, and I heard her call her surgery, I think, a tool. I hadn't heard the term before. So is the surgery perhaps like a physiological tool? Is that the manifestation to sort of hopefully stop the addiction or assist in controlling the addiction? Whereas I don't know what you could do for the gambler. I mean, that people just lose the house and the farm. And if you're in Thailand, the klepto, they chop his hand off. But this is getting morbid, but it's a blessing if that's the tool where a surgery can assist one to control, or hopefully better control, an addiction. Or you could go, Phil, I don't know what, and it's a disease. I mean, I'm all ears.
No, I mean you're not wrong on a couple of fronts. Like, it is a disease, but at the same time, the bariatric surgery is a tool. The same as community is a tool. The same as counseling is a tool. There are lots of different tools that we have to add to our toolbox in order to make it through this journey. Because, everybody wants the after. Everybody sees the before picture and they're striving for that after picture. The after is when we're dead and gone. Like, this journey is the rest of your life. Your after is forever. Like, you're going to be on this journey every single day. Same thing as if you're an addict and you're in recovery from X, Y, or Z. We're recovering bariatric patients forever. Like, we're going to be, we often say the work of weight loss surgery happens after the surgery itself. Like, the mental aspect of this, of the surgery is the least, the thing we hear about the least before we have the surgery, and then we're thrown into it after the fact. And it takes every single day you waking up and choosing to be a bariatric patient on the path to recovery, to a better you, every single day. Now, there are going to be days where you wake up and decide, I don't want to do it today. And that doesn't make you a bad bariatric patient. That makes you human. And we're okay with that. Because we play the law of averages, whereas the majority is 51% or better. If you wake up 51% of the time and choose to be better than you were yesterday, you're already winning. So if you can continue to add to that percentage-wise, you're just going to be that much more on top of things. People think, oh, well, I slipped at lunch, so, I'm horrible. I messed up my whole day. Well, nobody wins the day at breakfast. Just because you mess up at breakfast and have chocolate chip pancakes doesn't mean you can't have a healthy or nutritious lunch and then go on to have a healthy, nutritious dinner and still be fine for the day. Just because that one thing messed up. Like, people often think that just because we often think, harken back to the diets that we went on before we had surgery and say, oh, well, now that I've messed up for lunch, I'm just going to go ahead and mess up for dinner too. Well, then it turns into your cheat day comes a cheat weekend, and then you might as well roll it into next week, and I'll just get started the week after because, the holidays are coming up or whatever that may be. The path is always going to be there. So if you slip up for lunch, you jump right back on the path, like I said before, and have a nutritious dinner. Like, you're right there. You're right back on. You're either one step in or one step out of bariatric compliance at all times, and that one step is easy either way. It's just as easy to slip back into it as it is to slip out of it. And people often are so hard on, we're so used to being hard on ourselves anyway, that we beat ourselves out of thinking we deserve better, because that's just what we're used to doing. And it really takes you striving to realize that you do deserve better. You are worth the change to wake up every day and make that commitment to yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. Amen. And, thank you, because I think that you perfectly articulated the sort of the conclusive thought to what I was trying. I kind of like feel like I primed the wall, and then you put the nice semi-gloss paint and decorated the room. But that's all I was. I mean, it was a genuine curiosity, and it was just, like I said, among friends, sharing where my mind frame goes from both my background and my personal background, and having that challenge with food. And I wanted to just kind of tie it in for anybody maybe listening to say, there is no shame in the surgery, just as the person who is addicted to a narcotic or a gambling. Hey, it's okay. It's not okay, but it's great to say it's not okay. So to take control of your life and your health, and to kind of elaborate on one thing you said, Jason, about the food and the half in and the half out and the decisions every day. If you want to jump in, April, one thing you look, I know the words are on the tip of your tongue. I'm gonna make not a sharp left, but I'm gonna bring us into the right hand lane for the exit ramp and wrap it up. So what do you want to say on the coattails of Jason? Because I see it, the steam is coming out of your ears.
It's not steam. It's not steam.
Okay. No. I'm just teasing with you, but yeah, I know that you have a contribution.
I think where I always try to land when it comes to the disease of obesity is everybody's disease is triggered by, impacted, and affected by something different. What impacts Jason is not going to be what impacts me. And if I try to put everybody in the same box when it comes to obesity, then I'm going to exclude or others people who are suffering from the same disease. So even though we could all say, yep, we all have the disease of obesity, how it presents is different for everybody. And I think sometimes we can accidentally fall into, othering each other, or that comparison game, because it's like, Jason can't eat that, but I can. So therefore, this is different. If we just take a step back and we say, we're all suffering from a disease, we all deserve the same level of treatment and kind, caring, compassionate, understanding for what we're going through, then everybody can level up the treatment that is available and accessible to them.
Cool. All right. Very good. In conclusion, and this is just kind of a very open-ended, I just had a note that I wanted to talk about. If you could each just speak, openly your mind on the present and where we're going with, as a nation, as a general, right, American society, American culture. This is age-old trite question, relationship with food, and I have a note I wrote to myself, from food deserts to workplace desserts. So it's a very strange time where the most affluent tend to be, I would imagine, and you may have the data, you can correct me, but I would think that obesity is less prevalent in our most affluent, the 1%, as we say, right? That's the person I picture parking the electric Mercedes at the Whole Foods, and it's like, or carrots, no, organic carrots and sprouts and whatever the heck, which is great. We should all aspire to get more fresh veggies, and I'm not making fun, but we're in a time where what's available to to Phil and Jason and April. And maybe, this is a hypothetical. I don't know. I think one or both of you may work from home, but it's, lower to lower middle class, right? We are now hearing of what we call food deserts, and everybody's just, what is lunch? The big bag of chips and the big Coke at the gas station or the Mickey D's. And then that middle class to upper middle class, many folks are structured in an office setting, and there's the birthday, and they got a pizza and a cake for Sue's birthday, and what John brought donuts or whatever. Which isn't, again, I want to be sensitive to everyone, isn't to say that the plumber or the roofer, he can very well make more money than the person developing a website or an app, but then he may likely be back to C-section 1A, the drive-through and the gas station and the chips and the, microwave. We talked a few years ago, Jason, the Wawa culture with the, our gas stations there's two big gas stations on the Gulf Coast, chains, and it's just croissant witch and whatever the hell, and egg and sausage and chicken tender and rubber hamburger that's microwaved. And so that's the lovely state of affairs that Professor Phil, currently, not practicing personal trainer, sees and doesn't care for. How do you cope and navigate your way through that personally? And then if you have insight for the bariatric patient of tomorrow or somebody watching at home, but how do you juggle this damn kooky world we live in where it's been normalized that, and I hope I'm not food shaming. I mean, I don't think I would imagine everyone's on the same page that we shouldn't have the Big Mac. And Jason's example of the goof up was the chocolate chip pancakes. And we all know you can't have every meal cannot be chocolate chip pancakes, shouldn't be. But they want us, it's just freaking there every time I look left or right. So I'll shut up and give you the mic.
I would offer an alternative experience. I think when we talk about obesity only from a food consumption perspective, we are actually downplaying the totality of the disease. So I grew up when I was born, my parents were both scraping by. I didn't want for anything. I always had a roof over my head and food, but we were by no means middle class. And as I grew up, my parents' financial situation changed, and I grew up middle class. I only ate organic fruits and vegetables. I did not have chips and soda and candy in my home. It just wasn't allowed. I ate whole food, nutritious meals every single day. I was still obese from the time that I was born. So obesity doesn't discriminate. Obesity doesn't pick and choose. Obesity impacts, I think, every human in the exact same way. It's genetic, it's biologic, it's chemical, it's environment, it's culture. I mean, there's so many things that trigger the disease. So to say that because somebody chooses to eat a certain type of food, they're going to be obese, I don't know if that's necessarily accurate. Because if we're saying food is good or bad, we're putting judgment on an animate object, on food. So in BariNation, we work hard to kind of talk about food, not from a judgment standpoint, but from food is food. And you choose to eat whatever you choose to eat. And when we mind our own plate, we are making food decisions that are aligned to our personal values. And if I'm looking left or right at what other people are eating, right, there comes the comparison, there goes out the judgment, right, there divides the community and also divides society, because now we're saying some people are better fat people than other fat people, and that just doesn't seem to be the case. And I think the other thing that does go into obesity and socioeconomic status is that somebody who is more affluent or has more money is going to have access to better health care. So as soon as they realize that they are battling the disease of obesity, they're going to be able to access care and treatment much faster and at a different caliber than somebody who's not. So to look at somebody and just believe that they don't have the disease of obesity because of how they're physically presenting doesn't mean that they're actually battling it, right? Like somebody walking on the street, passing me on the street, might not believe that I'm a former fat person and that I'm still battling the disease of obesity, but it's still a part of me. It's still who I am. So, you know, it's a lens that we always have to, I think that I always try to keep present, and it doesn't matter how a person looks or appears to look or acts. What they're battling in their personal lives is usually private. And instead of me trying to understand all the things that are going into it, I can just practice. I can just practice kindness and understand that everybody's working through something, and I'm going to give them the space and grace to work through theirs, and I'm going to ask that they give me the space and grace to work through mine.
All right. Very good. Very good. And I, like I said, that's just me. I'm asking because I need to be schooled too. So if I see you at Bariatric Society, the retreat, you know, in November, and you have cake in your plate, I'm just going to frickin' ask you for a bite of it. There's no judgment. So now I feel like an asshole, but I'm going to take some of your cake. And that shit I said before about if someone's standing in the way, it doesn't stand true to you, Jason. You're about a head and a half taller than me. Well, I can't push him out of the way, but all right, Jason, what say you, my friend?
I would honestly, first off, I'm not going to stand in your way of pizza anyway. I'll probably grab it and hand you a slice because that's pizza. I'm a junkie for pizza. I'm not going to lie. No, to be honest, I think with more education every single day in healthier options are things that people are starting to take note of. Health, I believe, in the forefront of today's society is becoming more prevalent than ever. You've got apps for it. You've got, everybody wants to have an app about something that tracks, food that they're eating or exercise that they're doing or water intake or, all of these things are becoming a lot more socially acceptable to talk about than they were in previous times. Not just your Weight Watchers, not just your Jenny Craigs, not just your these things. People are, Peloton's been a huge advocate of making people, get healthy, and it's the cool thing to do to have a Peloton and to be on the leaderboard and to fight, to battle your friends to see who can get better. Those are all things that are helping society kind of without knowing that it's helping society. People don't really think of it in a way of exercise as they do as kind of a competitive edge. And I think those things, as well as kind of all of the different, the better meal replacement things that we have now, like factor meals, or you have, there's different bariatric companies that offer meal plans for people. I mean, there's lots of made-to-order meal plans and things that are more prevalent today than they ever have been. So I really think that moving forward, people are starting to take notice and take control of their health and their options a lot better than we have in the past. Kind of regardless of status or, what your bank account looks like, you have options to find healthier options. Now, like we said, there is no real bad food. Now, can you pound quarter pounders 3 meals a day? No, you cannot. I'm living proof that that's a horrible idea, because I was eating about 12,000 calories of McDonald's a day. My wife had the receipts to prove it, and she found them in my car. Matched up the dates, all from the same date, and I legitimately had gone through 12,000 calories of McDonald's in one day. So, like we said before, it's the law of averages. You can't eat it all the time, but are you a horrible person because you eat it sometimes? No. Because you're going to get right back on the horse, you're going to get right back to doing what you're doing, and everything's going to shake out fine in the end. You don't have to live this life of, just gray all the time because you had surgery. Like, it's not going to be boiled chicken and broccoli forever. Like, that's not, a lot of people think that that's legitimately how you live the healthiest lifestyle possible. Boiled meat, broccoli, no seasoning, no anything. You just got to, that's just the way to live, and that's healthy. White rice, boiled chicken, broccoli, it's healthy, and go lift. And it's just not, it's a way for some people, and I'm not shaming those people. If that's your jam, have a ball. I'm just not that person. I got all the seasoning in my house, and I'm going to use it to the full effect. I still use butter. I still use the things. Like, I'm not depriving myself. I'm just going to know that there has to be less of it now than there was before.
And if anybody at home is entering the boiled chicken breast diet, we recommend you make a sandwich between 2 dive bars. And we have a 24 bar value pack, and you could get a great deal, and that would make 12 sandwiches for you. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Before we do, this is kind of like late night TV show thing. I try to, usually with the different folks, we talk to various people interested in various health and cultural fitness stuff. So it could get a little serious. So then I try to go like a rapid fire kind of, do you like this or that? Just kind of a junior high fun little 20 questions, but we'll only do 5 questions, right? So let me just scribble out that I did a few things here. Okay. All right. So whoever wants to answer first, we'll go for it. Okay. She's pointed to you. All right. Favorite band, and if it's a guy, you could go, it's a tie, this and that.
Favorite band for me, I'm not a band. I'm a single singer guy. It's Chris Stapleton for me. He wins all the time.
Okay.
Every time.
Okay. All right.
I'd probably go with my Gen X core, Nirvana.
Oh, okay. I was a big, I was freaking Mr. Poison and Guns N' Roses when I was 11 and 12, and that freaking Nevermind hit.
Oh.
I think I was 13, and it just changed the game, right? Mm-hmm. And you're within 1,000 miles of where they're from. I don't know if we're allowed to elaborate, but was there a thing?
My grandparents were next door neighbors with Kurt and Courtney on Lake Washington.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
The house where he unfortunately took his life? Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So being in that region, was there like a hometown? Like, this is kind of corny, but I love Billy Joel. I love a lot of the bands from the Ramones to Billy Joel and whatever the heck, you feel an affinity for the stuff when it's right from your area.
Yeah. And it's still, his legacy still hangs like a very heavy blanket over the entire region, really. It's not a day goes by that you can't get in your car here and a Nirvana song comes on, right? There's a reference to his life, to the band, to the change that they made in the music industry, to the impact that they made on Seattle. It's everywhere. You can drive through his hometown of Aberdeen and, the house and the museum. It's a big part of Washington state culture.
All right. Very cool. Round 2. It's I just wrote favorite style of documentary, and what I'm getting at is there's the people that are obsessed with the serial killers. There's me, I like an entrepreneur or an artist's success or triumph or the disabled athlete stuff. And then you take it to the limit. There's the aliens, there's the shit under the sea, there's the environment, the vegan, the food, the whatever. Whoever's up.
So I'm a split on that one. I'm a JFK nut, so I love all documentaries about JFK. But on the other hand, I am a serial killer nut as well. I went to school to study crime scene investigation and all those things, so I am obscenely fascinated with all things serial killer and things. I'm actually watching a thing right now on Max, I think it is, that's called Very Dangerous People, and it goes through basically every serial killer known to man in America, I should say. And yeah, it's been pretty fascinating.
All right, April, you go, and then I'm just going to speak to that answer, but you go first. I don't want to take your time.
Anything educational. Anything. As long as I'm learning something new, I'll watch it.
Okay. So just for coming off of what you said, Jason, later in the summer, I don't know if you've been to where JFK was killed. We're taking a little family trip to Dallas, so I'll get a hold of you later on if you got any notes or ways to enjoy that trip. Then on the serial killer thing, three tidbits in escalating interest. During the pandemic, I got very into the Sammy Gravano podcast. He was John Gotti's right-hand man. He actually ratted out John Gotti and unraveled that whole era of the Gambino crime family. And he got the deal. And I mean, you know the story, and he got the deal and whatever the hell. And then Dum Dum was running ecstasy, and they were like mad because the federal government felt a little embarrassed by the guy. They gave him a pass, and so then they locked him up for 17 years, and he got out like freaking a year before the pandemic at 75 years old. And his kids were like, Dad, do a YouTube and make a Facebook page. And much like dive bars enhance success, people are stuck at home, they need content, and so he became a YouTube sensation. Very interesting, 19 recognized murders, and it's fascinating insight. And you know, I had to do this, and there was a power struggle for that. But everything is justified. You know, if you, it's this guy's fault, and I did it for that guy, and John Gotti made me kill this one, and the other guy was just a total asshole, and we had to kill him. And it's very, you know, interesting is lack of for lack of an emotionally charged word. Interesting. And finally, and we can elaborate, you can fucking call me when we hang up. I'm not going to elaborate too much because the two buddies who were there have this kind of like Goonies, Stand By Me, Stephen King type of moment. But we have a little tie. I could not, I now have to say this, I don't believe I could incriminate anybody and have anybody like go to prison on a witness stand. But we have a tie to that Gilgo Beach, Long Island serial killer. It's very weird, and I'll tell you when I see you. Also, yeah, we had the biggest serial killer in New York State history, Joel Rifkin, with whom they did a Seinfeld. Elaine was dating a guy, and Jerry was, you know, what's his name? Well, that's the only part that isn't great about him. His name is Joel Rifkin, and it's like they put that episode out like a week or two after the story broke. Whatever the hell the guy did, he killed like 15 or 20 hookers, and they busted him when I was in 10th grade, and he was living a mile across the other side of our town, and he was in my high school 12 years earlier. But that's all I know. I mean, he was just a guy in my town, you know, postal worker, if I'm not mistaken. So creepy, fit a profile. But I'll tell you the other thing. It's just a very strange, the Long Island serial killer. So, all right, I've made that long-winded enough. We're supposed to say goodbye. We got dogs versus cats. Anybody?
Dogs all day.
Dogs and dogs?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
dogs all day long.
All right. Okay. Dream car or dream car-free life. So my example is whatever the hell the dream, you know, the Lamborghini or the electric this and that or whatever the hell you want, or you got the big suite, literally the suite, the penthouse, you know, in the John Lennon's building, car-free living. You walk out, you're feeling New York City, Paris. But I don't know, make it fun. Whatever you pick, that's what you're stuck with.
I'm going car all day long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Dream car.
What's the car? But what is it?
Oh.
Now I want something I picture like the Saudi oil sheik, and you got like a mirrored purple McLaren bullshit thing.
Yeah, I'd probably want probably a Lambo or there's a new electric supercar that goes like 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds or 1.8 seconds. I'd do that.
Talk about the Lycan hypercar.
Yeah. Give me that one.
What is it called?
The Lycan. It's called a Lycan. That is the company, and it's called the Lycan hypercar.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah.
I will say we've seen 2 of the Tesla Cybertruck, the silver unpainted thing, and then one place, an air conditioning, like a big air conditioning firm, they painted theirs white. Looks a lot better in white than the rusty, wacko, oxidized steel. It still looks weird, but anybody out there who buys the stupid fucking truck, please paint it. Okay.
There's a guy,
Or
I read about a guy who bought one not too long ago, and he washed it without putting it in wash mode, and it is now a paperweight. It is $100-something-thousand paperweight. It doesn't work. None of it works anymore.
Wow.
Because he didn't put it in wash mode, and I don't believe the warranty covers that. So he's just out a $100,000 truck that looks weird.
Speaking of my high school and my town, I grew up in East Meadow, New York. I guess the biggest alumni is Chris Angel, the magician, exactly 10 years prior to me. And I shouldn't talk shit, but I heard he's kind of a jerk, and he started making money. He went back to Long Island. You hear, maybe this was in California or Vegas, I don't know where he is, but I think I was told he bought like the big fancy Jaguar convertible of the time, like it's 2005, and he drops 120 grand on his convertible, leaves it outside with the top down, and like the next day, now I say this, one of my best friends is Greek and I'm Italian, and we're kind of a yin and yang, right? There's just like a freaking 50 miles of sea in between us. But you got to picture like the night at the Roxbury, like these kind of like machismo, like, hey, bro, I mean, look, we had Jersey Shore. That was my people. And I can't dispute that's our people. So he like goes to the dealer. He's like, yo, bro, I think I need some warranty work. And they're like, well, with the car from yesterday or like 5 days? And he's like, yeah, the leather is ruined. And they're like, what the fuck? You let it rain for 5 hours. That's on you, pal. Like, so that's the story I heard. It's alleged. That's the key word these days. Allegedly, Chris Angel did this with the Jaguar. Okay. The most important one in the current, most important beef of our time. Are you with Drake or Kendrick Lamar? I don't even know if I'm saying the guy's name right.
You said it right. I gotta go.
All right.
I gotta go. Kendrick all day. Drake is Aubrey
That's the
Graham.
USA.
Drake is Aubrey Graham. He's the wheelchair kid from whatever that stupid little TV show he was on. He's an actor. He's not a rapper. He's nothing hip hop. Kendrick Lamar is hip hop to the core. And yeah, he has reigned supreme. He owned Drake in the entire beef. So I gotta go with. Kendrick did not use ghostwriters. Drake did. Drake has a whole team of them because, once again, he's not a rapper. He's an actor.
Okay. And April, in this groundbreaking and essential topic, can we get some insight into your inner thoughts and your heart?
I don't even know who those people are.
I knew that was coming too.
I just know it's a thing. It's on Yahoo. That's how old I am. It's on Yahoo. I gotta check my old Yahoo mail because I think there's gonna be like an African prince is sending me $1 million, but he needs my routing number to give me the $1 million.
No, log into AOL, man. You need to update some things.
I've tried. That one I can't recover. And let's not forget. They say that Drake was texting with the Stranger Things young lady when she was like 14. He's going like, I miss you. You look good on the
Millie Bobby Brown.
fucking episode.
He flew her out to have dinner at 14 years old when he was like...
Yeah, so a little sick.
He was not 14.
Yeah, he was like 37, so no bueno. Kind of gross. All right, guys. We went over time, but not as horrific as I'm capable of, so... let's put you guys over for the people at home. It's BariNation, and it's it's handle name at BariNation. That's a question.
Yep. So if you want to find us online, we're at BariNation.com. If you're interested in learning more about our membership community, it's BariNation.mn.co. And we are most active on Instagram, and that is Bari.nation.
The dot is extremely important. Please put the dot. Please put Bari.nation because if you don't, you're going to find a different kind of page to follow. And if you're into that, cool. But if you're not looking for that, then the dot is extremely important.
It reminds me of I bought a domain name of a competitor that bothers me, and I changed one letter. That's an easy mistake, and it was available. I'm like, you dumb motherfuckers, for $1 a year, or whatever, the first year. I'm like, we are, you rip off one more flavor, and I'm gonna it's gonna be free gay porn. I swear, And on that note. Thank you guys. It was a blast. And I look forward to seeing you guys. I know we'll see each other at the bariatric retreat in the fall. And hopefully we have an encounter sometime before that, somehow, some way, somewhere. And Jason, we'll catch up next week. We'll talk serial killers. And my little anecdote is quite a doozy. But I'll leave it at that. Good night, America, and worldwide, and Canada. But not Drake. F you, Drake.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
Thanks, guys. Bye.